What is up? Welcome back. This is part 2 of the AFC preview here. We still have Steve, we still have Sam, we still have me, Mike Renner. And again, Steve, talk to us about your fantasy teams here.
My fantasy teams, my best ball fantasy teams, all at playdraft.com. You can get that by searching draft in the App Store. It's our new favorite way to play fantasy. All you do is you get in there, drafts happen all the time. You can do a fast draft or a slow draft. You draft your team, and then that's it. You set it and forget it. No trades, no waiver wire. Don't even have to worry about injuries. In this format, once your team is drafted, they will take your best players every week. That's your best ball format. And this is all about winning real money. So you go in there, you can put up some money to win prizes. And that's where we come in, because we're going to give you guys a free game. All you have to do, go to playdraft.com or search draft in the App Store. You download it, you sign up, make your first deposit, and then use the promo code PFF, and you'll get a free $3 game. So a free $3 NFL game. And this site's pretty awesome because it's not just NFL. There's MLB, there's even golf, there's NHL, NBA. It's really easy to play. The drafts never really stop. And it's one of those things where you don't just draft one team, you just jump in a bunch of different games. Mike even, on the last pod, threatened us by saying he was going to play a $100 game at some point. I don't buy it, but you could put up 3, you could put up 10, you could put up 100, whatever you like. And we'll give you that free $3 game with the promo code PFF. It's all at playdraft.com or download the app called Draft in your app store.
I'll give you a hot tip here on who to draft. Martavis Bryant.
Back and healthy?
Back, can participate now in team activities for the Steelers. He said he's been in the best shape of his life. I know everyone is at this point in time.
I'm not. I'm in the 5th worst shape of my life this offseason.
But that kicks us right into the AFC North here. The Pittsburgh Steelers, your champions from a season ago. I love what they have offensively. I absolutely, I think they are back to that end of the year, 2015. I think Martavis Bryant, what he brings to that offense is basically that dynamic number 2 that teams have to account for and can't put all their stuff on Antonio Brown. Are the Steelers, can they actually challenge the Patriots this year? Can they actually give them a game?
Yeah, every year I think, their defense is the bigger issue when they go up against New England, but every year I look at that Pittsburgh offense, and even without Martavis Bryant, I thought last year they were going to make a run and that they had that dynamic offense. Le'Veon Bell, the way he can run the ball, and Antonio Brown is a mismatch. And the way Roethlisberger's played the last few years, unbelievable downfield thrower. And when you have Martavis Bryant as a downfield threat, they are close to unstoppable on that offense. So, him healthy, if he truly is going to be there for the entire season, a very dangerous offense. Their, Super Bowl chances, though, I still think, come down to that defense, which made strides down the stretch last year, but I think it was a little bit of fool's gold. I still think there's a lot of work to be done there.
Is Roethlisberger mentally checked out of his NFL career?
Threatening retirement.
This is a guy that's talking about retirement.
For us.
Last year it was his lowest overall PFF grade since 2008.
Some of that was injury. Some of that was
injury, yeah. But he's been injured in years past and put up monster grades. But when a guy starts talking about retirement, seriously mooting retirement, and you're coming off the worst season you put up for, the better part of a decade, you've got to kind of wonder if you're going to see the best of Ben Roethlisberger again. And as good as Antonio Brown is, and adding Martavis Bryant back and giving them great offensive line, etc., all helps. But Antonio Brown is a guy that, more than most top receivers, goes off quicker than anyone else when his quarterback isn't on. So if Roethlisberger doesn't play as well as Roethlisberger can play, it's going to limit Antonio Brown's success and production and danger more than it would do for somebody like Julio Jones or Odell Beckham. So you're immediately, you're blunting the Steelers at 2 different ways if Roethlisberger isn't at his best.
I'm less concerned about Roethlisberger, and yes, he didn't grade as well last year. I think the biggest issue with him, he was 8th highest turnover-worthy throws last year. He just made some uncharacteristic, really poor decisions. Whereas 2014 and 15, probably the best football of his entire career, making better decisions, making impressive downfield throws. one of the top leaders every single year in big-time throws, those downfield special throws. I still think he has those in him. So he still has the ability to put a team on his back, make the throws that he needs to make, and get the ball to his playmakers. It's just a matter of cutting down on some of the poor decisions he made last year. I don't think that's a massive issue for him, unless he is checked out, as you say. But, what if he turns it the other way and says, this is my last ride, my Ray Lewis last ride, let's put it all in and let's go. So I think Roethlisberger will be okay in that offense. It's going to be pretty dynamic.
The thing that I keep going back to with this offense is that offensive line. I don't know where we rank them preseason, but to me it is hands down the best offensive line in the NFL. And when you
consistency-wise,
consistent. When you think of the fact
spot.
Count that they bring all 5 back from a season ago. Alejandro Villanueva was on a tear at the end of the season. He is trending upwards. They are all young. They are all healthy. It's just an offensive line that was so good down the stretch last year. If Ben Roethlisberger is healthy, he is going to have time to throw. They allowed the least amount of pressures on third down a season ago.
Good one.
I just think the offense is so dynamic, can do so many things, can beat you in so many different ways that I don't care who you are, you're not going to be able to completely shut them down. But it does again fall on the defense. Are they not going to be forcing themselves to sit in zone coverage? Because last year they played the second most zone coverage of any team in the NFL because they didn't have the personnel that could play man coverage. Can they match up man to man against those top offenses, the Raiders, the Patriots in the AFC?
So we thought that maybe they were changing things up. Zone has been the Steelers' MO for years, but it was more. But they could get after the quarterback. They could pressure the quarterback. They're still relying on 50-year-old James Harrison to be their top edge rusher. And I know he's an athletic freak and he, is squatting 8,000 pounds and all that stuff. But at some point they need more consistent pass rush. We thought that they were going the other way. They drafted Artie Burns in the first round in 2016. He is a classic, long press man corner. And they play him in zone. And he had a pretty good rookie season. But they need to do something defensively, I think. They made strides down the stretch, like we said. They got after it a little bit more after the quarterback, but against good offenses, I don't think they're equipped to stop teams like the Patriots.
The James Harrison thing is huge. I mean, they need at some point one of these first-round pass rushers to actually turn out to be useful because James Harrison, at some point, is not going to be able to do what he's been doing. Did you see the video, by the way, of him pushing the sled with 1,800 pounds plus the sled, whatever that weighs, which is significant. That is ridiculous.
He started slow, he couldn't get it at first, then he kind of regrouped.
Just to lull you into the idea that he was human, and then starts shoving the sled down the runway. 1,800 pounds.
Insanity.
That's like having more than the entire offensive line sitting on that sled.
That's what he should have done.
And that's exactly what he should have done. See, we could get him to get those videos going viral. This is not just impressive athletic feats. This is the difference between reach and marketability.
You need one of those. You mentioned the first round picks. It's year 3 for Bud Dupree, who has not been very good since being drafted in the first round in 2015. They draft T.J. Watt this year in the first round. Had an excellent season last year at Wisconsin. We have to see if he's more of a one-year wonder or if he's going to be able to step right in. But at some point, they do need those guys to hit. More consistent play in the middle from Ryan Shazier, who's a little bit more athlete than pure football player at this point. So I think there's still a lot of question marks on this defense, and very curious to see, will they be more aggressive on the back end, play more man coverage?
I do think, though, this is a better team than they were a season ago. I think they have areas where you can note improvement. Cameron Hayward coming back as well. That's going to help them.
It's a good one.
Down the stretch. I just think
we didn't even mention this guy Le'Veon Bell yet, by the way.
I mean, that's kind of just a given. Le'Veon Bell, you have the best running back in football back there behind one of the best offensive lines of football. It's just there's a lot to deal with that offense. There's just a lot that you have to account for. And with Martavis Bryant back, is it the best offense of football? Is this the best offense of football right now?
If they stay healthy, I think they're the scariest. So just as far as in any given week, they could drop 50 on you, I think it's Pittsburgh. Scariest. I don't know if they'll put up the most points, so to speak, but...
Yeah. No, I can get on board with scariest.
Definitely one of them. I really like that Oakland offense. Though, at least the area that they have a problem that the Steelers don't is on the offensive line. They have issues, at least at right tackle. That Steelers offense on paper so far doesn't have any problems on the offense.
Who are we kidding, though? Patriots are going to lead the league in scoring. So
yes, they probably will. Are they the second best offense?
They are
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We might see a rematch in the AFC Championship, is what you're getting at.
That's what I'm getting at here.
Gotcha.
All right, let's keep it moving to the Baltimore Ravens, who I'm going to say it right now, another fairly large regression candidate, in my opinion.
Regression from what?
Regression from, I mean, they weren't great a season ago, but
Are you saying they're going to be a 4-win team?
I think they could drop well below 500, yeah.
Oh.
I just on paper, there's no, like, they shouldn't be better than someone like the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, they just don't have as much talent as someone like that.
Don't they always win a little bit more than they should, though, the Baltimore Ravens?
Yes. I mean, that's...
Last year they probably did. I think last year they overachieved just a little bit.
I think they
So that's a
usually
fair assessment, I think, maybe from Mike, that there's a regression.
Yeah, but I think if they consistently do that, they're probably not... If they consistently win more games than they should when you look at them on paper rolling into a season, at some point, I mean, they're probably not going to regress as much as just they're going to end up better than they look.
What's their biggest, like, what's their best unit on this team? What's their calling card here?
Flacco. Here's the issue. Here's what I think the issue is, and I think it's what you're getting at, Mike. We talk a lot about offensive lines here and all that stuff, and that's some fun talk. We like offensive line talk, but playmakers, I think, can trump the offensive line in today's NFL. You can get away with subpar offensive line play or average offensive line play if you have playmakers. So when you see a team, the Eagles might be a good example, where they're really good in certain spots, but then receiver and corner is weak. When I look at the Ravens, you just don't see consistent playmakers there, and that scares me if I'm, a Ravens fan. And then at the cornerback position, can Jimmy Smith stay healthy? Will they get something out of Marlon Humphrey as a first rounder? What will Brandon Carr be like as a free agent? I feel like they might be weak at just the wrong spots, so it doesn't matter that maybe they've got a few pieces up front or whatever it is. And you're right, there's no calling card, but I just don't like where they're weak. Wide receiver, potentially corner.
I mean, Terrell Suggs is still their best pass rusher, but he's worse than James Harrison at this point. He's really fallen off towards the end of his career. He is not bringing the heat whatsoever anymore compared to what he did, in his prime. And they don't have an Elvis Dumervil across from him anymore. They don't have a guy across from him that can, match what he could do. So that's just that front four, that defensive line just doesn't look like it has the teeth that we've come to know from the Ravens front fours.
Yeah, they did kind of at least attack that in the draft, though, this year. Like, 3 of their first 4 or 5 picks were on the defense, were on either the defensive line or guys that are going to be playing as kind of situational.
Tyus Bowser is awful, so.
Yeah.
Listen to the draft episode to hear Mike just trash Tyus Bowser.
I didn't say they did it well. I said they attacked that area. But, I think they've at least recognized that's an area of concern, or at least trying to fix it. I think the thing with the Ravens is that they're definitely not great in any one area. You look across that roster and there's no real clear strength at any of those units, except, arguably the best safety tandem in the NFL, but that's teamed with a couple of corners that aren't necessarily going to hold that up. But equally, I don't think they're terrible in any one area either. I think all these units are reasonable, at least passable.
Yeah, O-line's going to have some issues.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think, but every one of their kind of units tends to have one standout somewhere and then a problem on it. I think they're just the definition of an average side, almost across the board, everywhere you look. This is, they went, 500 last year.
Yeah.
I think just given the kind of coaching experience and what they have there, I think they're probably in that kind of ballpark again.
And I don't see Joe Flacco elevating.
You don't?
This team. I don't.
Even though he's elite?
Even though he's elite, he somehow will not be able to elevate this offense.
I mean, that's just crazy.
What about Colin Kaepernick? Would he elevate this offense? Let's just go on. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, who were your third place team in the AFC North a season ago. Again, a team I thought was another team that wasn't going anywhere prior to the draft. But then I loved their draft. Some notes on the Bengals last year. They are one of the most zone-heavy teams as well, like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Third most in the NFL, around 75% of the time. Some of the most split safety looks of any team in the NFL.
I love these numbers, Mike.
Cover 4 and cover 6. 21% cover 2. That's a lot of cover 2 that they're running still.
In today's NFL?
Yeah. That offensive line, though, is basically what it all comes down to with this team, because they have weapons offensively. Andy Dalton, A.J. Green, John Ross, Joe Mixon, but those tackles, it could be the worst offensive line in the NFL right now.
We talked on the last podcast about how the Seattle Seahawks basically had Steve playing left tackle for them last year. Steve, the Bengals are local. You should get out there. I think you'd have a good shot.
I actually have a shot.
On the field.
Well, I'm sitting out of training camp, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, savvy veteran.
I don't do training camp.
No. You don't want to go through that every day. You're getting long in the tooth now. I'm not going to lie to you.
Right.
Your best athletic days are behind you. But I think on the eve of the season, if you pick up the phone, you could get out there and get some game time.
Brandon Albert's trying to do that. That's the Brandon Albert saga. The line is going to be a major question mark. Andrew Whitworth is gone, and Kevin Zeitler is gone. They're two best offensive linemen. We have Cedric Ogboye, who struggled at right tackle and is slated to play left tackle. Jake Fisher, who has just looked okay at best when he's had a chance to play, starting at right tackle. So questions there. Andre Smith, still in the league, still going, kicking in to right guard. And Russell Bodine back at center, who has been one of the worst centers in the league. So I like what they're doing with the playmakers. And when you look at the way that they've maximized Andy Dalton, 2015, I think was the prime example. He had a ton of good playmakers, a season's worth of Tyler Eifert and A.J. Green and Marvin Jones. And now you add John Ross this year and in Joe Mixon, as you said, and Tyler Boyd's the slot. So, like, the playmakers look good. Line's the question.
This is going to really test can the playmakers overcome the offensive line?
Oh, this is a classic test.
Yeah.
You have to say, though, Dalton has helped protect the offensive line. The scheme has helped. Quick release and all that stuff. I mean, that only goes so far, though. You can't get rid of the ball in 2.2 seconds on every single drop back. At some point, it's 3rd and 7. You have to drop back, scan the field, and find the open man. That's where this offensive line is going to get challenged. It's going to probably take some creative scheming. We'll see if they do anything to help the tackles or what they're trying to do there. But the playmakers are better, and historically that's been a good way to get the most out of Andy Dalton.
The single most important player to that offense is Tyler Eifert, because he is the guy that takes all the attention away from A.J. Green. I know they're going to try and do that with the wide receivers, with John Ross on the other side, some speed, and they've added weapons all over it. But Tyler Eifert is the guy that completely transforms that offense. And if you have Joe Mixon in there, Tyler Eifert in there, A.J. Green, John Ross, you've got all of those guys there. You can probably go some way towards trying to mitigate that offensive line. If you don't have Eifert, I think it just makes such a big difference to what you're able to do in terms of making up for the tsunami of pressure that is inevitably going to be falling over the top of Andy Dalton this year.
If the line wasn't the big question mark, we're talking about a Bengals team that brought in, 4 guys that we had rated as first-round picks on our draft board? If the offensive line, let's just say they brought back Whitworth and Zeitler or just had them coming back, I feel like the whole tone of our Bengals discussion would be different. Isn't it that extreme?
Yeah, if Whitworth was coming back, you go from one of the best pass-protecting offensive tackles in the NFL to one of the worst. That's 5 plays a game where Andy Dalton's going to be under pressure when he wouldn't have been if they kept Andrew Whitworth.
And that's how significant it is, because they brought in, you mentioned Joe Mixon, so John Ross in the first round, Joe Mixon in the second round. Take the off-field aside, he's a first-round type of running back. Jordan Willis was one of our key sleepers coming out, who we thought was a first-round talent. And Carl Lawson,
who's dominating at camp, apparently.
Dominating at camp. He was a first-round caliber edge. And he's the guy, like Jordan Willis, we went in and we said, he looks like a first-rounder to us at PFF. We understand if the NFL might not like him. Carl Lawson, we could not figure out why he fell in the 4th round, other than he had an injury history. But I still thought he was going to go. He was uber productive, and he's shown it at camp. So we got 4 first-round caliber players.
And that's not counting the guys from last year's draft class who are going to get on the field for the first time this year. William Jackson, I think, is an incredibly talented corner, is the perfect physical specimen for today's NFL. Tore his pectoral muscle in camp last year, never got on the field. So that's last year's first-round pick is going to get on the field for the first time this year. And then depending on how you feel about Andrew Billings, a lot of guys really liked him as a really talented nose tackle type. If nothing else, he's going to be an upgrade over Domata Peko in the middle. So, that team, I think you're right. We're talking about the Achilles heel of an otherwise contending roster.
Yeah, and to me it's impressive too, because I thought that the Bengals may have peaked in 2015. I thought that was the best their roster was, and then you lose your Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanoos of the world, and it was a team that was building through the draft, and it felt like they just hit that spot where all those guys were ready to move on. I feel like they've replenished the roster other than the offensive line.
It's always good on paper,
story.
though. Of course, if they swing and miss on like 5 of those 6 guys, then it's suddenly terrible.
They won't swing and miss.
Can they get back to that 2000? So they were 6 wins a season ago. Huge regression. Are they a viable? Could you see them making the playoffs in this one?
I feel like they're more of an 8-win team, and with the youth that they've brought in, and the fact that it might take some time to reshape the offensive line going forward, I feel like they've done a good job of kind of not bottoming out, getting back on their way up, but I'm struggling to see a lot of success for this season.
That offensive line looks so ugly. Last year, Andy Dalton under pressure at a pass rating 57.1, completed 43% of his passes, threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Pressure affects every quarterback. It's like a 35-point drop in terms of passer rating when you're put under pressure. But Andy Dalton, I think, suffers more than most quarterbacks in terms of when he's hurried, and he is just going to be under a weight of it this year.
I will say I heard a very interesting theory from a guy at a bar a couple weeks ago about Cincinnati.
This is great.
It calls the Bo Jackson curse.
I need more of these.
He said back in 1991, Bengals linebacker dislocated Bo Jackson's hip on a hit, and since then they've been cursed to where anytime they have a chance of going to the Super Bowl, the quarterback's got to get hurt.
This was the play.
The 05 Carson Palmer ACL against the Steelers, 2015 Andy Dalton. If they have a chance of going, they're going to get
the curse of Bo Jackson.
The Bo Jackson.
This was the play that ended Bo Jackson's career. So the really ridiculous thing about that is that, if you look at that tackle, that happens to players like every week in the NFL. Yeah. What they say is, the way there's like a mythology around Bo Jackson and his superhuman athleticism and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Basically, Bo Jackson was so physically strong that he destroyed his own hip socket trying to wrench his leg out of this guy's grip, who chased him down or caught him, got him in the tackle. Yeah. And like any normal running back just gets tackled, goes down because he's caught. Bo Jackson had such natural raw power about him that he just pulled his own hip socket to pieces trying to get out of this tackle.
You should have seen him play baseball too, Sam.
The Bengals.
He was awesome.
I don't think I'd have appreciated that as much as the football.
So we just went really in depth breaking down the Bengals, and Mike brought up the curse of Bo Jackson as the reason why they don't have faith in the Bengals, because that curse of Bo Jackson doesn't matter about anything else.
All right, let's move on to the Cleveland Browns after the curse of Bo Jackson.
Finally.
Cleveland Browns, 1 win a season ago. Wasn't great, but that actually might have been great, though, for them, because I don't think they were actually trying to win. I think their goal was to win 1 game, or fewer, if that was possible. So they're in a good position, though, right now. We've talked about all the stuff they've done with the draft, talking about them ad nauseum, because they're just a fun team to talk about with all the stuff that they've done. Where do they go this year? They're obviously going up. They can't be worse. I mean, they could be worse, but it looks like they're getting better. What's a reasonable expectation here?
I think 5 to 7 wins is something that they could achieve, which is a significant upgrade. I'm just fascinated by this roster. If you go up and down the offensive line, they were the team that signed Kevin Zeitler from the Bengals. You have J.C. Tretter that they bring in, who's always played well when given the opportunity in Green Bay to play center. So they've upgraded the offensive line. They brought in 1 million rookies, or 1 million draft picks the last 2 years, so it's just this youth-laden roster. And I know that they get, made fun of. I don't know what it is, but they get this analytics approach, right, that they're taking, and people are questioning it. How's it going to work? But they're doing it the right way. Accumulate as many picks as possible, see what sticks. They're going to be one of the fun teams to watch, just because we'll see how this youth looks. And I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs this year, but they're building the team the way they should, with all those draft picks.
So the team that they, I think, should be compared to, not this year, but as the way they're building this thing, is the Oakland Raiders. If you look at Oakland under Reggie McKenzie, he took an incredible amount of crap for years, and they were steadily moving in the right direction, just really, really slowly, weren't taking big steps. And then all at once in 1 year it clicked and everything kind of came together at once. And suddenly, like you said last year, or I said last year, they were arguably the second best team in the AFC before Derek Carr gets hurt.
Right.
I think we could be like a year away from the Browns doing the same thing, that they're slowly taking these small steps, bit by bit, they're getting better demonstrably, whether it's overhauling the roster and getting younger and more talented, and then this year adding some actual legitimate, proven NFL talent to that offensive line, which could, by the way, easily quickly become one of the best offensive lines in the league.
Absolutely.
There's not enough there this year for them to do that, but I think next year you could see this all come together at once, and suddenly what was getting ridiculed as this kind of Moneyball analytics way of doing things will suddenly look exactly like what they should have been doing. I mean, everybody was pushing for them to take the quarterback this year, take Trubisky or go for one of these top quarterback prospects. And instead, they went hard after the offensive line in free agency. They've added to their receiving weapons. They've basically built everything around the quarterback so that regardless of who it is, that guy's going to have the best possible opportunity to start. They get lucky, I think, in sort of having Deshaun Kaiser fall into them in the second round. I doubt they were expecting that. And then if everything goes terribly this year, they'll have another shot to find a quarterback in the draft.
Mm-hmm. That's what I love. Yep.
But I think they're really well set up to do things. I think you're right. I think this is a kind of 5-6 win team. But then next year, I think, is the year that they could be really exciting.
I love the Deshaun Kaiser thing because he was a second-round pick, but the thing I always come back to is he was their fourth selection this year. I think it's a perfect, no-pressure situation. You see how good he is. He's a guy that, if he puts it all together, can be a very good player. There are a lot of good physical tools.
I think that was the right area for him to go.
Absolutely.
He was talked about as his first-round talent. I think that's where he should have gone. Midway through the second.
Agree.
You've got the talent there. You've got the physical tools, but there's a lot wrong with him. So that makes sense.
And they already picked Myles Garrett, David Njoku, and Jabril Peppers.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't turn out to be anything, fine. You're picking your quarterback again next year. I think even if Kaiser looks great, they're still probably going to be picking a quarterback next year. It's a big, deep quarterback class, as we talked about on the Draft Prospect Breakdown podcast. So I love that situation. See what the youth can do. If Kaiser hits, awesome. If he doesn't, that's fine. I think Cody Kessler still has some value there. I mean, so it's just an interesting team, the way they're building the roster, and a fascinating study into the mind of the quote-unquote analytics department who just stocked up on draft picks, and that's generally the best way to go.
I'm really sad that they didn't just cut Brock Osweiler like 5 minutes after acquiring him, just to have officially bought a second-round pick.
Tall guys.
It's my only criticism of their offseason, that they didn't just cut him immediately just for the fun.
Tall guys take a while to develop.
I will say this. As much as I loved that they got all these picks and the analytical approach, what, all that stuff, I do not like that they only drafted one cornerback over the last 24 picks in 2 years. That, to me, I've said it before, what defense with three good cornerbacks is not, I don't care what other personnel you have have three good cornerbacks, you have a top 5 to 10 defense, and they do not have good cornerbacks.
That's a good point. That's a position
They could have stocked up on 5 or 6
especially
corners
last year in that draft.
And you hit on a couple of those, and all of a sudden, your defense gets absolutely transformed compared to you still have Jamar Taylor and Joe Hayden starting, and you're still going to struggle on the back end this year.
Oh, man. Mike just goes all wet blanket on our Browns.
I would have loved to see them go a few more corners.
They seem to be going really heavy on undrafted corners for some reason. I don't know if that's like a conscious strategy that we can try and find these guys as undrafted guys, because they've loaded up on a lot of those guys, late round and undrafted guys.
Still, I think it's because maybe they'll have cap space and go sign one when the time comes. But just would have loved. That's a position where you can maximize value on a rookie contract.
Just want to highlight that they have two of your favorite players. They've got Joe Schobert, Mike's favorite, at outside linebacker, slated to start, and then they have Rashard Higgins at wide receiver, a guy that Sam loved. Sam stops the tape. Sent us all messages over Skype when he was living back in Ireland, when he was watching the Rashard Higgins tape, and was telling us how much he loved him. So you guys have vested interest in two of your favorite players on the Browns.
Yeah.
Go Browns.
Okay, guys, let's take a quick break to talk about beer. I'm talking about a beer delivery service called Tavor. It's through their app. All you have to do is sign up, and they will give you beer options every single day. 2 options on their app, and you're not required to do anything. This isn't a Beer of the Month club. They get stuff from over 400 independent breweries, and this is the way to get beer from stuff that's not in your area. You only pick the beers that you want. You just throw them directly onto your cart, and then it is a flat rate to ship it, whether you're sending 1 beer or 300. So you can just stock up on beers, tell them when you want to ship it. It's a flat rate, and you get what you want. So like I said, no strings attached. You sign up, get the beers you want. It's called Tavor. And just so you guys know it, the spelling is Tavour. Go check out the app, download it today. They sent us some free beer. We love it. We may have had a few in the office, and we think you'll love it as well.
All right, on to the AFC South, where last season your Houston Texans were the champions. They have moved on from Brock Osweiler. They paid the Cleveland Browns to take him. Get him out of our facilities, they said. Now they have Deshaun Watson. They have Tom Savage. Neither lit the world on fire in their first preseason game. Neither was close to lighting the world on fire. This is an interesting team. The defense was great last year. The most cover one heavy team in the NFL. 46% of their snaps last year. They play single high man coverage, but they lost their best single high man corner in AJ Boye. I think it's Boye. And Kevin Johnson, though, is back to replace him. J.J. Watt is back on the defensive line. What do we expect from is the defense going to be as good? Is the offense going to improve at all?
Where do
we go?
I think the defense will be good.
I'm really excited to see those 3 guys together. J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, and Whitney Merciless. If they can figure out a way of deploying those 3 guys so that they could each have their maximum impact, I mean, that's just terrifying for an offense to try and deal with.
And they already did a pretty good job of moving those guys around. Mike mentioned all the cover one that they played, and essentially when you're playing cover one, you have this extra defender, so you can play around with him, and you can get creative in the front 7, and you can send 4, send 5, and they did a lot of stunts and twists and throwing Whitney Merciless over the center and moving guys around. And now you have J.J. Watt, who we already know can get pressure as an interior player off the edge. He could do it all. So yeah, they just take this defense that was really good on the back end. I thought they did a fantastic job of just understanding offensive schemes and taking away easy throws. And then you have guys up front that can pressure the quarterback. So they should be much better, assuming JJ's back to form after 3 rough games playing through injury last year.
I don't know though. I think the loss of AJ Boye, the way he played a season ago, can't be understated. He came out of nowhere and it was a fluke, but he was dominant when he was on the field. He was a top 5.
He was so good. He really was.
He really was, and there didn't look fluky the way he was playing. It wasn't just he lucked into some interceptions.
Completely agree.
He was shutting down receivers, which. Yeah, you'll have quarterbacks will have less time to get the ball out with J.J. Watt back, but maybe guys are going to be more open. I don't know. I don't think it has quite the same defense as they were a season ago just because of that, even with J.J. Watt back.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to net out something like a wash. I think it's difficult to overstate just how good J.J. Watt is. I mean, it's ridiculous. And you bring him back to a defense that was already pretty good. It's a huge upgrade. I think you're right. It's a big loss to lose Boye. I think getting Kevin Johnson back should be a big part of trying to mitigate that. I think the 2 together, it's probably going to end up about the same. I think this is another team, though, where the Achilles heel is on the offensive line. And I think that is always a bigger thing when your quarterback is not Aaron Rodgers, where your quarterback is not a proven elite guy who can deal with a certain amount of pressure. Whether it's Tom Savage for any length of time or whether Deshaun Watson gets in there pretty quickly, those guys are going to be under a lot of pressure. We talked before about how the best teams in the NFL last year, the entire offensive line gave up 126 total pressures, I think it was, for Kansas City and Oakland. Chris Clark, on his own, at right tackle, gave up 67 total pressures last year.
Wow, Sam.
So one guy gave up
stat.
more than half the total pressures of an entire offensive line.
Is that bad?
Yeah, and he's back. He's back starting.
Not ideal.
It's not like they've sent him to the bench and upgraded the position. He's slated to start again, and he's not the only weak link on that offensive line. So whether it's Tom Savage or Deshaun Watson, that's a lot to overcome.
There's not a lot of hope for that offense, I'll just say. It doesn't look promising.
Yeah, the line, I think, kind of goes overlooked a little bit. When you're talking about Houston, a lot of people end up talking Tom Savage and Deshaun Watson. I do think when you look, if Watson is the guy, certainly questions about how well he can run the entire system, and I think you have to simplify some stuff for him. He looked looked okay in his first preseason game. I think he looked like Deshaun Watson looked at Clemson. He'll make some throws that come to him, and he'll bail on some pockets, and he'll miss some easy throws. And it's going to take that defense playing at a championship level, Watson playing at a game manager type of level if he gets the job, or if it's Savage, game manager type of level for either of those guys, behind a rough offensive line and some playmakers that have some questions beyond DeAndre Hopkins. I think Hopkins is still awesome, but Will Fuller battling injury, and you don't have a great number two wide receiver or even tight end option. Fedorowicz, in some circles. Wicks, got it. That's my kryptonite. He's okay. He's just okay.
Well, it's a good thing, because if you got better than okay, you'd be screwed.
I don't want to say his name for the rest of the year on the podcast, but there are question marks at number 2 receiver, especially in Houston.
Yeah, the Texans just they seem like they're going to be the same team they were a season ago, which is around 500 team.
Yeah, but that's kind of fine because they're in the AFC South.
Well, no. This is all of our analysis is going to start pointing to the Jaguars. Watch.
I was going to just say it's going to be the team we're talking about next, the Tennessee Titans.
Well, the Titans they're kind of like the Chargers. This is off-season darling.
This is my AFC South pick this year. They improved in a lot of ways. The more I watched schematically what they did a season ago, the more I watch just look at what they have on paper now, the more they're another team where trying to figure out holes, trying to figure out weaknesses in this team is difficult. Offensively, there really aren't many weaknesses. Obviously, defensively, cornerback is a big question mark, but after that, you have a lot of talent all around this roster. So maybe not a ton of depth, but that starting 22. On paper, this looks like it should be the best team in the AFC South.
I think it probably is, but I think the best team in the AFC South is probably still just a 10-win team, and I think corner is their big weakness. A lot rests on Adoree Jackson getting things right away, which is probably not going to happen. I suspect he's probably going to be quite a boomer bust kind of guy. You're going to see some pretty impressive plays, and you're going to see him get turned around and made to sit down by somebody.
John Ross did put him on the ground. You and I came away with, I think, the same assessment of Adoree. I mean, incredible athlete, movement skills, nearly an Olympic athlete, but still technique-wise, there were just some ugly plays.
And I think the bad stuff is correctable, but it's not going to happen week one. You're going to see some ugly Adoree Jackson play in year one, and then the hope is that over the course of the year, or maybe even running into year two, you'll fix all that stuff, and suddenly you'll have a really, really talented corner. I think Mayock had him as like his number 1, number 2 corner for most of the draft process, was ridiculously high on him, and you can see why. You put on the tape, he looks. The good Adoree Jackson is phenomenal, but I think it's going to be a while until that happens, and then so you're going to see some pretty ugly stuff in that secondary again. I agree. I think the rest of the roster is in really good shape, and it should be more than good enough to take this division, but I still don't see them exactly contending.
Going into the draft, I thought, even though they'd signed Logan Ryan at cornerback, I thought because of all the extra draft picks that they had, perfect draft with all the cornerback talent, double up, triple up at drafting cornerbacks. Just try. They grabbed Adoree early in the 17th pick, was it? 18th pick overall, and I still would have grabbed another guy. Logan Ryan, you got to see if he was a New England system guy. He's a very good zone corner, very, very good tackler, and just outstanding tackler throughout his career, just fundamentally sound. But every time he played man coverage, they had a safety chaperone with him and stuff. They didn't really trust him on an island type of, and he's getting on an island type of money. So we'll see if he was more system guy. But cornerback, it's a question in Tennessee.
He will get tested. They played the second most man coverage of any team last year, 52% of their snaps. Did not have the personnel to run man coverage last year, though, which is
did not at all.
So,
Obviously, they didn't want to add another corner to the stable when they already had Kalen Reed there.
No. God.
Speaking of Sam's favorite players,
I think I've told this story before, but like John Robinson was talking to him at camp, and Kalen Reed had an interception, and I said, "Hey, we really like Kalen Reed. You guys do too." And he's like, "Yeah, we liked him so much, we took him with the last pick in the draft."
All I heard there was Kalen Reed had an interception in practice. That's all that matters.
So he was pretty forthright in saying that, yeah, I mean, we didn't like him as much as Sam did. I don't think anyone did. But he's
a talented player. Impossible. He's a talented player.
I don't think his mom thought he was first round.
Mike, I asked you to do this on one of the recent podcasts, but give me the breakdown on what you saw on film, because you did a great breakdown on the Titans offense, what they do schematically. They call it the exotic smash mouth run game. Why is it good? Why does it work? Why does it fit what they have from a personnel standpoint?
Well, Sam mentioned earlier about how the Bills do some things that no one else really in the NFL does, and I thought the Titans did a lot of that in terms of window dressing a lot of their runs. You know, they use almost 2 tight ends in the field all the time. A lot of times they'll put 3, and they'll send those tight ends different ways. They'll send the fullback a different way from which way the run's going. They do a lot of misdirection stuff to make you think a run's going one way, just to keep you off balance as a defense. They run then a lot of option with Marcus Mariota when they're not running from under center, and then that's from the run game perspective. And then from the passing perspective, they use those tight ends even more in terms of chipping defensive ends, in terms of overloading one side and running half-field reads to where you have 4 guys in a route, but they're all to one side of the field because you have this overload of tight ends. A lot of bunch formation stuff with that. I just thought it was really sort of simplistic and really helped out Marcus Mariota in his transition from a very collegey offense at Oregon to the NFL, where if he would have put it all on right away, he's going to make mistakes. And so he didn't make a lot of mistakes last year. They protected the ball really well last year and plays to Marcus Mariota's greatest strength, which is his accuracy. If he can find a guy who's, even has a step, he can hit him. It's just the finding a guy part was probably the hardest transition for him. So I really like what they did. And now with more receivers like Corey Davis, like Eric Decker, that can actually create more space, they can open it up a little bit. Marcus Mariota going into year 3 should be more comfortable. I just think the offense has, the potential to get even better than they were a season ago, and by leaps and bounds with the personnel.
Yeah, definitely wanted to see them upgrade receiver as well. Just like we talked about, when we were talking about the Ravens being weak at receiver and corner. I don't care about the rest of your roster. If you're weak there, it's just rough in the NFL. They needed to upgrade there. Corey Davis, what did I predict before the draft? I think he's 1,000 catch receiver.
He said top 10 all-time receptions.
Top 10 all-time receptions, and I like it even more now that they've paired him with Marcus Mariota. That's how much I believe in Corey Davis, his ability to win at all levels. Eric Decker, I think, still has something left. Taywan Taylor was a nice draft pick in the 3rd round. And Rashard Matthews played pretty well here last year. So I think they've got a solid receiving core, and Marcus does need to take a step forward in year 3. I still think he has some issues. Not everything looks smooth when he's back there, but excellent in the red zone. That's been talked about quite a bit. Never thrown a red zone interception. He is really good in those tight windows and good quick release. I think he does a lot of things well.
I don't think that Corey Davis prediction got enough hype around draft hype for sheer outlandish insanity predictions.
What? Top 10.
You're saying of a draft pick that he's going to have a career that has more receptions in it than Randy Moss or Derek Mason or Art Monk, Torrey Holt, Wes Welker, many other Hall of Fame caliber type receivers.
Torrey Holt's probably a good comparison. You're taking Torrey Holt, who I think it's a pretty good comparison for Corey Davis. I'm just saying,
Torrey Holt had one of the greatest 6-season stretches of any player to ever play the game. And you're saying of a guy who's never yet been on an NFL field is going to end up better than him over the career.
I said he's going to have more catches. Not better than Torrey Holt. It's a new NFL.
I'm just saying that's a hell of a prediction.
By the end of Corey Davis's career, he's going to have flags on his waist, and they're not even going to be playing tackle. He's going to have 200 catch seasons. That's why I said it.
It's going to be all shovel screens.
It's going to be all. Yeah, how many shovels is he going to catch? Trust me, I know what I was talking about. It has nothing to do with skill level. Just the NFL and volume. But I like Corey Davis quite a bit.
No, I think we all agree Titans, they look improved.
Yeah.
All right.
They do.
On to the Indianapolis Colts, who...
Don't.
That's just the defense, man. It's that defense. It's like, what do you do with that defense? I mean, they added the safety from Ohio State in the 1st round, Malik Hooker. They added Quincy Wilson in the second round. They tried to address it, but it's like they didn't address it enough to where, you can't go from the worst defense in the NFL, I'll say.
But
to
look,
anywhere near competent with just that.
I think, yes, they were bad defensively. Really, really bad defensively. I think the conversation changes when you address the Colts because they have Andrew Luck.
Yes.
If the Cleveland Browns had made those moves and gone from this bad defense to, hey, they're addressing it, they're adding a couple stopgap pieces rushing off the edge, you'd say, okay, they're moving in the right direction. But because they have Andrew Luck, and in theory they're in contention every year, you say, they're not doing enough. They're not doing enough. They were starting from a really bad spot, and they're moving in the right direction.
Well, here's the other
thing. They're
thing.
not there yet. That's my opinion on it.
If there's one player that can change a defense more than the impact of adding just one player, it's Malik Hooker, because
You're a Malik Hooker fanboy over there.
I really am. Not.
He's a safety fanboy, is what it is. Center field safety fanboy. I get it.
I know me ball hawks. Just if you look at what he does, he allows you to do things schematically that other safeties don't do, and there's very few players, no matter how good they are, can change what you're capable of doing from a schematic point of view. Like even a guy like Myles Garrett. So Myles Garrett is a consensus best defensive player in the draft. You're not doing anything different from a scheme point of view with Myles Garrett than you are from the next best pass rusher there. Mm-hmm. I think you are doing different things if you get Malik Hooker compared to the next best safety. So let's say, Jamal Adams, if he's your next best, if you had them 1-2 in that direction, or even if you just valued what Hooker does more than that, I don't think you can do the same things with Jamal Adams, even if he's a complete Eric Weddle style elite safety, that you can do with Hooker. So you take him in there, you put him as your deep lying free safety, and suddenly you've got your version of Earl Thomas, and you can now play these single high schemes, and you can cheat to help out the corners, and you can cheat with the strong safety, and you can do all this stuff that you couldn't do when you had different guys there at free safety. Plus you're going to get the bonus that he's probably going to pick off a couple of passes over the season because he just has those kind of instincts. So even if you didn't have all of that, you would have this transformative effect on the defense because you're able to do different things.
The Colts did. They were a cover 1, cover 3 type of team last year, single high on vast majority of their snaps. So,
yeah. He fits in a guy that can do it.
Yeah.
I love what Hooker brings to the table. So, yeah, I see what you're saying as far as the elite free safety goes. Quincy Wilson, I wasn't as high on him as others, but has good size, has some technique issues I think to maybe tie up, but I think it's a step in the right direction there. They still need some long-term solutions rushing the passer. They still have our boy Henry Anderson. If he can put together a full season, I still think there's plenty there. So it's a step in the right direction where they had really bottomed out, and I think they've made some mistakes along the way, obviously. And I think you watch a guy like T.J. Green last year play. I think that was one of the worst draft picks in the entire 2016 draft. He was a second-round pick, and he stepped right in at safety. He was just a pure athlete, and he looked like it last year.
I can't remember which game it was, but his first start, he bit on the same play-action fake at least 4 times.
Was that Green Bay?
I don't know who it was.
There was one game. It wasn't just biting on play action. He was chasing the running back across the field. Yeah. And it was bad. There were some plays like that were really, really bad. So they've made some mistakes through the years, and it's come back to bite them.
I was going to say, crazy thing is they were 8-8 last year.
Yeah,
it feels like they were way worse than
that. Is the Andrew Luck factor.
8-8.
If he's healthy,
factor.
And the AFC South factor.
That's
if he's healthy, they're in contention.
If they really had anyone else at quarterback, the Colts, that would be like Titans all the way in this division. But it's like the Colts could go 12-4. Just
under the radar downgrade over the offseason, though. The retirement of Pat McAfee is now his job is now being held by Jeff Locke.
Your boy, Jeff Locke.
Jeff Locke.
Can
boot the ball straight down the middle of the field like few other players in the world.
Punters are starters too.
That actually is a pretty big.
It really is.
Go from the best punter in the league to the worst. That's
significant.
Not meaningless. Yeah.
Even more pressure on Andrew Luck.
We need to get Gordon on the line. What does that actually mean?
Gordon, quantify that.
No, it means something. All right. On to the last team here of the AFC. Last but not least, maybe least this year. We don't know. Jacksonville Jaguars.
Again.
Man. So Gus Bradley out. is the cover 3. I'm not sure if it's going to be there. They ran at 50% of the snaps last year. I'm not sure they're going to run that Seattle anymore, but it should be good, right? They should be good, right?
It should be better.
So it should be better.
Is this a replay from the last 5 years of podcasting where we thought that they'd
I wasn't convinced that they would, like, not, I think 2 years ago I was like, it's still selling. Last year I was maybe a little more on board, but
I think since Gus Bradley was the best Senior Bowl coach of all time, everybody's like, this is the team, we got to get behind the Jaguars, and it just
they're a perfect example though of what happens when you try and run that Seattle scheme if you don't have an Earl Thomas or a Malik Hooker. It doesn't work. You need a guy that can allow you to do that and have it successful. Every year is the same story with the Jags. In the off season, they look like they've added players. They look like on paper they're a dramatically better side heading into the year, and somehow it conspires not to actually end up that way. And the big thing is Blake Bortles.
That really is, though. Like, it's because Blake Bortles is just not an NFL quarterback, or even close was last year. He just he's not operating an offense at all at this point.
Last year was horrendous. I mean, it was absolutely disastrous. But the year before, he did look like he was heading in the right direction. It wasn't all the way there, but it was a massive step forward from his rookie year. And given how raw he was coming out as a prospect, it was moving in the right direction. It was the right kind of career arc for a guy who would be successful. But then it just completely fell to pieces. And the concern is, I can't think of many quarterbacks that have been ultimately successful who have had a year in their career where everything has just fallen apart completely.
They really could take a page from the Titans in terms of offensively. Just protect him. Don't let him get in those situations where he's going to lose you games like that. And I think the Leonard Fournette draft pick speaks to that. As much as I hated the pick, I think it signals sort of a transition to, we just can't let Blake Bortles lose games for us anymore. We're going to take the ball out of his hands as much as possible. And I think we'll see that. I'm not sure how much it's actually going to help, but I think they have to do it.
The thing is, when he was looking decent in 2015, and he threw 35 touchdowns in 2015. It's not real because there was so much garbage time stuff going on and all that stuff. But it just an idea of the type of production that he was able to put up. He at least showed, hey, when I have a guy like Allen Robinson, I can at least get a ball in range for him to go up and make a play. Right? And that's what he did really well. He led the league in deep passing yards in 2015. And deep passing yards are very dependent on the receiver and the coverage and all these other things. It's not just quarterback play. But last year, watching him throw the ball beyond 20 yards was absurdly disgusting.
It's depressing.
He had a passer rating under 16 on deep passes. And my colleague Zach Zach Robinson summed it up well. He said he just didn't have a feel for when he needed to back shoulder it, he'd be throwing it front shoulder. When he needed to put loft on it, he'd be zipping it. And everything in his feel, everything was just off. His mechanics were bad. His decision-making was bad. There were some signs of life at times during the season, but it was bad, top to bottom. And the rest of the roster is getting better, and this is pretty much make-or-break time for Bortles.
I mean, I've used this line before, but Blake Bortles played so badly last year that he made Allen Robinson look bad. And this is a guy who couldn't look bad when Christian Hackenberg was throwing him the ball.
Yes.
So that's how poor Blake Bortles was.
Yeah, put something in the time zone.
Yeah, exactly. Just in his vague direction. If he can even run to the point where the ball is going to fall, you're probably okay. I will say about the Jags, though, that they have more players that I'm really interested in seeing how they do in 2017 than I think any other team. Whether it's how exactly Leonard Fournette is going to play at running back. Because as much as I don't like him as an NFL prospect in today's offense, in 2017, if we were playing in like 2005, Leonard Fournette would be an awesome pick. But how Leonard Fournette is going to be in today's offense, Cam Robinson looks like he's going to start at left tackle now because Brandon Albert's doing the walk out of training camp, and maybe I'll give you a call in September.
The Brandon Albert thing is absolutely hilarious to me, but continue.
We need a special podcast.
We already said
Then you've got Calais Campbell coming over from Arizona, over 30 but coming off a career year. I mean, that in and of itself is interesting. Sheldon Day was a really fascinating player to me if he could get more playing time this year. Miles Jack, was everybody's favorite draft binky going up to that draft. And then guys like AJ Bouye and Barry Church coming over in free agency, how those guys are going to do in new surroundings. There's so many interesting players in this team in terms of how they're going to either bounce back or how they're going to hit the ground running. It gives them such a wide kind of spectrum of where this team could be. You know, if a few of them work out, there's a lot of talent there. You know, if Blake Bortles gets back to even approaching that 2015 level and some of those guys work out, it's quite a talented team. If they all like swing and a miss, it's just a disaster.
It's just the same.
Yeah.
It is a combination of big name free agents like a Calais Campbell. Now last year they grabbed Malik Jackson. He had a good season.
Yeah.
He was fine. So now if you get a similar production out of Calais Campbell relative to his skill set, all of a sudden it's a pretty good defensive line. But it is an interesting combination of these high-priced free agents like Calais Campbell, like Malik Jackson, with draft potential guys like Dante Fowler and Miles Jack and Jalen Ramsey. We saw him play to his level last year, but they've got all these top draft picks combined with some pretty productive veterans defensively. So one of these years, it should click for the Jaguars defense. And if they do go run heavy offensively, as much as we say Fournette's not a great fit for their zone scheme and all that fun stuff, if it can click offensively, then they become at least a dangerous team. If the defense clicks, they're at least a tough team to play every single week.
Yeah, and there's enough playmakers on that offense that they should be able to do damage as well. Like I say, it just requires getting the ball in the general vicinity of Allen Robinson. That should be an incredible weapon. Leonard Fournette should be able to run the ball pretty well. Even if he can't, it's not like they don't have anybody else in the backfield. Chris Ivory has been a really talented ball carrier over his career. TJ Yeldon was pretty good. There's players there that can do damage. It's a team that should be able to win games. They just somehow keep conspiring not to.
I mean, it's Blake Bortles, though. Like, it just comes down to the quarterback position. You just can't be that bad and expect to go anywhere close to 500 in today's NFL. That's it. That's just it.
Need Bortles. It's make or break time, or they're drafting a quarterback next year.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. Maybe they should have been drafting a quarterback this year, especially at number 4. When you look up and down their roster, and I'm not saying you have to draft a need there, but you're like, hey, we don't have this massive need. Why not maybe just take a quarterback and get that competition started early?
Yeah.
So
we shall see. All right, that is it for the AFC. We'll be doing NFC next week. Once again, go leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We'll be drawing a winner to win a free PFF Elite subscription. That's a $200 value. Those are signature stats. Those are the stuff that we didn't have the past few years. We had in the past, but took it away for a couple years. It's back now. All the great coverage stats, pressure stats, all the in-depth stuff that you know us for.
Fantasy tools that I use to win my fantasy
tools
league.
that Steve has been dominating with, apparently.
I'm undefeated at all my fantasy
leagues. Go ahead and check that out. Leave a review. Leave a way to contact you, either a Twitter handle or an email address. We'll be selecting a winner every week. Check it out. We'll be back later in